Hey everyone, it's Jamie and welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing another speed build. This one is kind of more of a Halloween-y themed build. I decided to attempt to make the Addams family house. However, since there's been so many iterations of the Addams family over the years, starting with back in the 60s and 70s, there being some live action versions as well as an animated series then, and then the 90s films, I definitely wanted to take a little bit more inspiration and pay a little bit more homage to Charles Addams, the original creator of it, who I just love Charles Addams' work. The Addams family is so much fun. And what I love about the Addams family, for one, is that they're supposed to be this inversion of the typical ideal 20th century family. They're very ghoulish, they're a little dark, they're potentially unethically wealthy, they're a little cut off from the rest of society, they're very unaware of how morbid and dark they are. And I've just, who doesn't love the Addams family? They're just so much fun. And I just decided I wanted to build again in Strangerville, and I hadn't built a home yet for the Roswells, and I was like, you know what? The Roswells kind of are, I wouldn't say they're like the Addams family, but they're very dark, they're very weird, very potentially unethical. So I just felt like it kind of fit. Anyways, I did have a lot of fun with this build, as well as I had a lot of fun just looking into the Addams family a little bit more. So if you don't know this, so the Addams family debuted in 1938, I believe. I don't believe it was 36. I believe it was 38. But something's telling me, no, you're wrong. I was right, it was 1938. Quick Google search. And like I said, by the time the 30s came around, a lot of the Victorian aesthetics were really out. They were seen as dark, weird, just overall not appealing anymore. And that's kind of what Charles Addams created with this family. Originally in 1938, when it debuted, there's only Gomez, Morticia, Addams, and their children, Wednesday in Pugsley, as well as Uncle Fester and Grandmama. Later was added Lurch, their butler, as well as Pugsley's octopus, Aristotle. A little bit later, we get Thing, who later on becomes depicted as a disembodied hand. I couldn't really find what he was originally depicted as. I probably, if I'd done a little bit more research, I could have found it. Definitely some of the more popular images of the Addams family from their cartoon strips are closer to, I think, how we view the Addams family now. As well as then later in the 50s, Gomez had his cousin It introduced to the family. We all love Cousin It, who doesn't? And there has been so many iterations. The first film version was the 1991 Addams Family, and then its sequel, Addams Family Values, as well as the Addams Family 1998 direct-to-DVD Family Reunion, which I think is supposed to be a sequel, or the last part of that trilogy, but I don't think it has a lot of the original cast. So I personally never saw it. I think it's one of those movies that's kind of washed down the drain. As well as this year we had the Addams Family, which apparently is already slated to be getting a sequel, despite it having something like a 41 score on Rotten Tomatoes. I haven't seen it yet. I still want to see it because I love that they decided to do a style, or the way they depicted the Addams. They're a lot closer to their original design by Charles Addams, and I think that's just something animation allows artists to do. However, I understand probably why you couldn't. It might be hard to cast people who look like the illustrated versions. With that said, in the 1973, there was a short film, I guess, called Funhouse. Never heard of it. And then there's the television series, The Addams Family, that ran from 1964 to 1966. Then after that came The Addams Family 1973, which actually included cameos from the original TV cast, which I thought that was a fun fact. Then we had The Addams Family 1992 to 1993, which I think that was animated. Yes, I am so correct. And then there was The New Addams Family, which was like an American-Canadian sitcom. It lasted roughly about a year. It was on Fox Family, and I couldn't really find that much about it. Other than it was canceled after one season. As well as apparently they were mentioned in the new Scooby-Doo movies in 1972. They also have a television special, Halloween, with the New Addams Family, which who knows what that was. There's a musical as well, which I think that's fun. I love musicals. I didn't know there was a musical. As well as, they've been mentioned in video games and stuff like that. So the Addams Family has had lots of iterations and versions, meaning that there's many different versions of what the house looks like. And Charles Addams, when he debuted what the house looked like, because when the comics first went on, he didn't show the house. He showed some interior shots, but never from the outside. Eventually he did show what it looked like, and he chose to do a Victorian. When asked why, he said Victorians were just better for haunts, which makes sense because literally by the 30s, Victorians were well beyond their golden age. They were falling apart. They were no longer seen as elegant, as well as they had become associated with ideas of corruption and decay. And not just kind of corruption in the sense of rotting, but corruption in the sense of political corruption, corrupt families. The Victorians, they had their hate. It had come and it was long gone. With that said, though, this isn't too shocking if you've seen my channel. I've talked a little bit about this before. As early as the 1920s, Victorians were already on their way out. However, that's what inspired Charles Addams to put them in a Victorian. So, I gotta love Charles Addams. He's a smart man. He said Victorians were better for haunts, and I agree. And his idea for the Addams Family is that they were supposed to be this satire inversion of the ideal 20th century family. They're suspiciously wealthy from an unnamed monetary source, much like many Victorian wealthy people were. A lot of big families in the 19th century who got their wealth got it through less than ethical means. Just putting that out there. Or definitely a little bit more seen as unethical by modern standards, but even then it was definitely built on, people saw it as built on the kind of abuse of other people, as well as just Victorians were just seen as creepy, dark, and out of style. And the family's aesthetics were very dark and creepy. They're very morbid, and they're unknowingly morbid, which I think is the most fun part about them. They don't really get what they're saying. They shouldn't be saying, which I think is the fun appeal of the Addams Family. But yeah, so I had a lot of fun with this build, as you see, I did struggle a little. I felt like it was a fun way to kind of top off my Strangerville builds, and it kind of made sense to me to give it to the Roswells. But speaking of The Sims and its relation to the Addams family, you may or may not know this already, the Goth family, they are supposed to be vaguely inspired by the Addams family, which makes sense to me. You know, you got Bella Goth and Mortimer, who are supposed to be definitely references to Morticia and Gomez. And then you have their two children, which I don't think I've ever really thought of Cassandra, though, as kind of like a Wednesday Addams type. But, maybe we've all just been playing her wrong. Maybe play her a little bit morbid. And then Alexander, I don't really see as a Pugsley either, but it makes sense, two children. As well as in past iterations of the Sims games. Sometimes on, I believe, maybe just The Sims 3. May have also been in other Sims versions. There is Lolita Goth, who is a ghost, who lives on the property of the Goths, and I feel like it kind of fits that idea that the Addams family, they're very gothic, very dark, very ghoulish. So just like how we all love Gomez and Morticia, we all love Bella and Mortimer. Who doesn't love the Goths? If you don't love the Goths, I don't believe you're a true Sims stan. Just saying. It's like law. You know. Anyways, like I said, I had a lot of fun building this. It was definitely, like I said, trying to figure out what from where I was taking, because even though Charles Addams is the one who came up with the idea of them living in the Victorian, he really had very frontal views. There was no views from the sides and back of the house. It's kind of hard to see what's going on too, or understand how it would work in more of a three-dimensional space. So I looked at some 3D models, as well as I looked at some of the different versions from over the years, and that's also kind of where I think the coloring of the house comes in. I was definitely thinking more of Charles Addams, and I never really got the idea from his comics that the house was supposed to be black, because also Victorians weren't usually black. They tended to be more of brighter colors. So here I went with kind of an off-white. If you download this, feel free to change it to more of a black or a brown, if you just don't think it works. I noticed when rewatching watching the movie Addams Family and Addams Family Values, is that in the first movie the house is kind of like an off-white, very kind of dirty looking, and then in the sequel it's kind of a dark brown, almost black. So maybe I should have gone with that, but like I said, I really just wanted to pay more of an homage to Charles Addams, who I think is great, and gotta thank him. He gave us one of the most memorable families, who, even though we're supposed to be a subversion of the American family, I think has become really kind of, for many people, what they want their family to be two loving, maybe strange parents with their kids that they adore. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like or a comment, subscribe if you haven't, and keep your eye out. We're gonna have a few more, it's only me, I'm gonna have a few more Halloween-y kind of builds coming up this month. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.
They're creepy and they're kooky, Mysterious and spooky, they're all together ooky, the Addams Family. Their house is a museum, when people come to see them, they really are a scream, the Addams Family.
Neat. Sweet. Petite.
So get a witch's shawl on, a broomstick you can crawl on, we're gonna pay a call on the Addams Family.